Welcome back to the kickoff. Today we are talking the race for top four. And for the first time ever, my team is leading the way in this group chat. It's the first time for everything. And Josh, we watched your side against Chelsea against Man City start really well, collapsed pretty quickly, and City just got on top of that game and never let you back in it after that. Was that frustrating watching the chances missed early on?
It was super frustrating. And you know, we've sat around the kickoff table before and say that, you know, Jackson's profligate and he can't finish his dinner. And unfortunately, that's coming true. Like 7 games now, he's had 7 big chances, no goals. So that's pretty concerning. And like I really feel now, it's endemic of our entire season. We look like we should be putting teams away. We could have been 2 goals up and we didn't finish them off. And I think if you don't finish a team like Man City off, they're always going to have, even if they're in a massive slump, I think they're still going to have chances against a team which really we're quite open at the back. So yeah, it's not looking good for the rest of our season, I have to say. I'm a bit worried about it.
It's kind of like you guys were anointed as title challengers and then everything's gone, like it hasn't just gone like off, it's gone to absolute shit. I was talking to Joey last night and he's like, yeah, well, we can still get top 4 if we just put one good run together on the run in. And he's the most positive person, right? But equally, I looked at the form and every single other team who are competing for these top 4 slots have got 3 wins minimum in their last 5 games. Chelsea have 1 win in their last 7. Right?
Crazy.
So to say Chelsea are off the form right now is an understatement. Like they really need to turn things around. But Man City have turned things around a bit. Craig, I've seen you tweeting on Twitter about Foden coming back into it. And just generally, they look like they're getting their confidence back a little bit despite getting smashed by PSG. What did you make of their performance, mate?
Listen, when I say we're back, I don't mean Man City, because I know there's around.
It's too late. You can't beat allegations.
We all know there's Man City.
I'm Phil Foden FC. So Phil Foden FC, we are back. They've been
and Pep FC.
Who? And what?
and Pep FC. And Rodri FC.
Yeah, Foden.
It's half the team.
Foden's got 4 goals in 4 games, I think.
What can I say? I just like greatness. Like, I like greatness, right? I admire greatness. But yeah, Man City dominated Chelsea. They dominated them on XG. They dominated them on chances, passing. The first goal was so unfortunate for Kosanov, that kid, man. Like I don't think I've seen a nightmare start like that, or not one in recent memory that I can remember. Like he literally gives the ball away, hands them a goal, then a minute later gets a yellow card, and you're just looking at him like, this is a baptism of fire for that kid. But they managed to turn it around. The thing I was most impressed about with Man City was the fact that Pep actually tweaked his game. And I saw him say in the press conference earlier in the week, I think you sent it in the group chat, Brian, about him saying that, you know, football's evolved and maybe, you know, Liverpool and other teams in the league have found a different way of playing and maybe his style is outdated. I don't think he used that word, but I think
what he was referencing was the way you do not get pressure, you do not get time on the ball the way you used to. Yeah. And Pep kind of admitted without the ball, we're not great and we need to be better at that. If you look at the way Chelsea played with a high line and yet they didn't press. That's football suicide in my opinion, because you're basically leaving yourself vulnerable at the back without giving yourself that protection of getting in the face of the opponent. And their midfield was pretty non-existent. And I just think it played right into the hands of City.
It did. And we weren't seeing that usual tiki-taka football that Pep likes to play. It was Route 1 football. We're talking about Ederson knocking it up the field, Haaland controlling it and laying it off for people to go in and score. And I think Man City, I don't want to make this about Ange or other certain managers, but it's just indicative of good managers know how to adapt even in the face of adversity. Do you know what I mean? Like when things aren't going right, you got to find different ways to win. And Man City understood that Chelsea are a dangerous team. They just came off the back of a terrible result against PSG where they were 2-0 up. So I think Pep just understood, you know, we need to change things up, and it worked for them. And I don't know if they
not to be the poo in the pool though, but like it does help when you can bring in players like Mamouche. Like you gone into the market. He looks quite exciting. He looked good.
And you know, onto him, new Egyptian king right there.
literally, like, it's crazy. We don't know what's going to happen there, but then I think there's deeper things to talk about with Chelsea, because Josh is being let off with one right now, and I don't understand how he's sitting here just chilling, just amongst us as normals, when deep down it's dark times. Your manager's come out and said, I'm standing by Sanchez and Onana. What's the difference? That chip from him the other day was nothing short of criminal. Where was he going? He steps into no man's land, and then Haaland wasn't even having the best of game. He gives the gift to him. And it's the fact that the manager's come out and said, I'm standing by this goalkeeper, is incredible. The
manager is the only person that is affiliated with Chelsea in any way that is still backing Robert Sanchez. And to be honest with you, he's the only one that's been doing that for the last 8 weeks. None of us want him.
We're sick of him. You're in no position to talk about.
You're not, and you better just, you said you like winning. You said you like winning, you like greatness, and you support Spurs. When I heard that statement, look at my face, run the VAR back, and look at my face when you say you like greatness, and I know who you support.
I'm saying though, you lot had trouble times with Onana, fair, right? Remember, and everyone was at his neck saying he's a failure, he cost a lot of money, and you lot stuck by him.
I'm done.
And he's doing all right now. I'm not saying Sanchez is the guy, but I'm just saying, he's not the guy.
We can't put it all on Sanchez, however, though, because he definitely deserves criticism because he's fucking dreadful. But equally, if you look at Chelsea, and I brought this up earlier on in the season, big 6 games when Chelsea play other big clubs, they don't show up, mate. And one of the key reasons that statistically it's looking like is Cole Palmer doesn't show up in these big games, right? Non-penalty goals, right? If we're looking at since the start of last season, I seen this on Twitter. I don't know how fucking accurate it is, but it looks accurate from what my memory says. They said between about 15 to 17 matches, he's got 2 non-penalty goals in 15 to 17 games, and they were both against Manchester United under Eric Ten Hag. So, the facts are, Cole Palmer does not show up against big 6 sides, and I don't know why. What do you think there's a reason for it, Josh?
To be honest with you, I would liken it to this. If Mo Salah or if Kevin De Bruyne had players that were 20 years old, that were underperforming, that were egotistical, that didn't really fancy it, I don't think they would have the numbers that they currently do. I think they're within teams that enable them and get them the ball in the right areas and therefore can do their magic. And yes, a player like Mo Salah can absolutely go on a squirrely run and go and do something and make a goal for himself. But ultimately, I think more often than not, they end up getting helped by the team.
Are you comparing Palmer to Salah and Kevin De Bruyne?
Yes, absolutely. I am absolutely. Yeah. So wait a second. I'm glad you mentioned that. Cole Palmer, 51 starts for Chelsea, 55 goal contributions. Is that just an average player?
Is that just a guy that used to do stuff like that, and he fell off to the earth?
I don't think there are 10 players in the Premier League era ever that have done numbers that good in the Premier League. 55 goal contributions in 51 games.
I'm just saying, Salah and Kevin De Bruyne, we're talking about senior season, done it year in, year out guys. Like, we're talking.
I know why we're talking about it. It's a fun narrative to sort of say, yeah, we're Cole Palmer FC, and when Cole Palmer doesn't turn up, then we're not good enough. But quite frankly, you've got to look at 10 other players on the pitch that were absolutely dreadful in comparison.
Doesn't he go missing in the second half though? Because we all watched the game, and there is something when he's not on the ball as much, not really directing play, and then it kind of goes away from him. Yes, there's other players that you need to talk about, but you start to lose his impact on the game. You're watching, even if you take away GA, if you take away GA and just say, actually, let's look at you in this game. Have you been marked out this game and stopped? Yes. They can stop you from playing a game.
You got to think about what Maresca did. So, I think it was about 68 minutes or so. Nkunku comes on for Jackson. Nkunku is one of the least motivated players that I have ever seen in a Chelsea shirt. And I've seen players like Morata, and I've seen some fucking horrendously motivated players at Chelsea, like players that were out of the door that had to play. And he brings him on. He doesn't want to play up front. He doesn't give a fuck about playing up front, and he doesn't really want to play for Chelsea. And then he puts him up top with Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer basically is a false nine who also is half injured. Like, for God's sake, Maresca just, for me, mate, that was a managerial problem.
But we got to talk about your midfield as well. Your £200 million midfield of Caicedo, who you rate highly. I rate him highly as well. You know, I talk about my words about him last season. You call me out on that, all right? £200 million midfield.
I'm glad you took it back.
Of Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez were anonymous against some granddads in Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Kovacic. They got a combined midfield age of like 100 years old. And Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez was supposed to dominate and run that and be the engine in that team. And I just felt like Man City were having their way in that game.
I think it's a
can I ask
system
you a
thing
question?
as well.
Do you think formationally, Chelsea might benefit from going to a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-2-3-1 because they just seem so lightweight in that midfield? Like they were bypassed constantly there. Do they need an extra man?
Do you know what? Like, I don't necessarily mind the 4-2-3-1, but I just think it's being implemented in a really weird way, and I'll explain why. When we had Mauricio Sarri, he did play a 4-3-3, but what his key thing is that all of the lines only had to be 20 yards maximum apart. He had this huge thing about being very compact. And you remember Pep did that quote where he was like, oh, it's Chelsea. That was around the sort of like the compact nature of the way that we played. Maresca plays the complete opposite way. Basically, what he wants is he wants all of his attackers as high up as possible, and he wants all his defenders back, and that includes Caicedo and Enzo. So Enzo's in the attacking one, Caicedo's in the defensive one, and then we have no one in midfield. So for me, rather than it being sort of like a formational thing, I do think that Maresca needs to learn from this, and he needs to pack the midfield and say to Enzo, mate, you can't be a number 10. We've got Cole Palmer, one of the best number 10s in the world. Just fucking sit back, defend, spray passes across. And Caicedo, I feel sorry for him, mate, because Caicedo's doing the job of about 8 people right now. He's filling in at right back when Reece James goes on and bombs on. He has to take Enzo's place. He has to muck in other areas. When Trevor Chalobah goes in and makes a tackle high up the pitch, Caicedo is the one that has to fill in. So quite frankly, I feel sorry for that guy. But yeah, the midfield issue is a huge one.
I did watch Joey and Josh's review of the game, and I think that there's one thing we really need to bring up, and I'm sorry, Josh, but I need to highlight this to the boys. They were complaining at the end of the video that we need more players. Now,
oh my God.
Now, let's just look through as to why, because Madueke has had a flop of a season, despite having the odd good game. The same can be said for Jadon Sancho. His stats are not great. And Nkunku, completely flat. Neto has had some really good games, but he's out of form right now. And Felix, who I was very skeptical on, has been an absolute non-event. Chelsea feel like their B team, which seemed like a great idea early on in the season, it feels like isn't as great of an idea now. Josh, can you explain why you feel like you need more players?
B team, it's very simple, Brian. B team stands for bomb squad. That's the abbreviation there, because none of those players in the B team want to be at Chelsea anymore. Like, you look at it, Christopher Nkunku, João Felix wasn't in the squad, but that was because of a family bereavement. But quite frankly, he isn't looking up for it. We're looking to sell him to AC Milan. You got Dewsbury Hall on the bench, again, not fancied. You've got Axel Disasi on the bench, again, not really fancied at all, want him out of the club. There's so many other players that we could list as well that are in the reserves that aren't even playing. Carney Chukwuemeka, Ben Chilwell, I could go on. There are players that will be leaving, and there might even be players that leave in January, right? We could be offloading 4 or 5 players. And this is why we're talking about strengthening the team, because as you say, if Noni Madueke is the sort of the starting right wing berth, you've got an issue because he's inconsistent and also very egotistical and very selfish. He's not playing for Chelsea. He's playing for Noni Madueke. And that's as simple as that. He stole a goal off the forehead of Trevor Chalobah the other day, a debut, another debut goal that he would have coming back to Chelsea, which I thought was a disgrace. And like you say, I agree. Jadon Sancho, hot and cold moments. Neto, hot and cold moments. And this is why we're talking about signing a winger. And yeah, mate, it's hilarious that Chelsea are back and we're in this position where we need to sign players. But we are Trading FC. We are Football Manager FC, Directors of Football FC. They will love every single minute of it. In fact, I'm actually a bit worried about how much they do enjoy it. I think there's something that we need to investigate there. It's a little bit worrying.
Do you know what's crazy though? We saw a sad moment in football. I don't know if you lot felt the same, but when a striker tries to give confidence to a defender in game, something's wrong with the game. When literally Jackson, you're meant to be enjoying the bad game that he's having. Don't pump him up so he can be better in the game.
Intimidate him. Make him feel worse. Tell him you're shit,
would
mate.
never. Costa, Drogba, everyone that's walked through those Chelsea doors, would have never made him feel
Diego
better.
Costa. He would have preyed on him.
He would have.
Oh my God.
Literally.
And now, a word from our sponsors. Everyone online needs a VPN, not only to be safe and secure, but also to get access to some sweet, sweet content. And that is where Surfshark comes in, because a VPN is basically like wearing a pair of trousers outside. All the stuff that you want to keep private stays private. And Surfshark helps keep your whole online activity encrypted so you can browse privately. And you can block ads and travel the world in one click. And say, for example, you're in the UK, you want to watch the 3 p.m. football on a Saturday, but you can't in the UK. But in Spain and America and other countries like that, you can. And that doesn't just apply to sport. You can change your Netflix location to get better Netflix or watch things like Hulu and other content from America. And another big help is when you're out and about, if you want to do online banking and you're on a public network, anyone can snoop and have a look at what you're up to. But when you use Surfshark, you can mask your IP so all your traffic is encrypted, which means your personal info stays personal to you. I use Surfshark for all my devices and only on one subscription. You can log into as many as you want, and they have 24/7 support if you need any help. And if you want to get Surfshark, you can click the link in the description or use the QR code on the screen now. And you can get 4 months extra of Surfshark for an unbeatable price. And the best bit is they give you a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk in trying it out. Just click the link in the description below now, go to surfshark.com/kickoff, and you can get 4 months extra of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. So big thanks to Surfshark for the security and that sweet content, but for now, enjoy the video.
There's a lot of issues with Chelsea.
He's not ruthless enough, Jackson, though, is he?
He's not ruthless
when you look at that chance that he had on the left foot, he doesn't even believe in his left foot to even dink it into the goal when it's an open goal. Like, that's where you're looking at someone going, he had a good run of form. His overall play is decent, but these patches are going to get him dropped. He's going to be fired essentially from the starting lineup. There's no two ways about it.
Aston Villa have better strikers than us, and that's no disrespect to Aston Villa, but fuck me, I'd love John Duran to come off the bench in this game. I think he would have changed it.
That brings us on to the rest of the race for top 4, lads, because Man City are now on 41 points. Ooh. Forest are on 44. I feel like Liverpool and Arsenal are pretty much confirmed. Yeah. So we look at Forest 44, City 41, Newcastle 41, Chelsea 40 in 6th place, Bournemouth in 7th on 40. Now, Bournemouth look absolutely unbelievable to watch them play football. I mean, they blasted us. They then went and smashed Nottingham Forest. That 5-0 defeat for Forest, it feels like it could be the beginning. It's very hard for me to imagine Forest can keep this up for the entire season. Do we think City and Newcastle could nip into those 3rd and 4th spots, or do we think Chelsea can revive, or Forest or Bournemouth? What are you thinking, lads?
I would have to say on this one, man, you have to look at Man City, because the win against Chelsea is a massive one, but they've got a horrible run. But again, if Man City now start winning these days, they got like Liverpool, Arsenal, it's nasty. But they get through those games, they're going to feel a level of invincibility again. And it could get scary when you say to yourself, could they even finish as high as 2nd? I'm looking at that Man City side now saying, well, and those additions in that Mamouche player, not just him, but if Haaland can get amongst the goals, that's someone that can actually find Haaland and almost unlock him, because I think he's a bit easier to stop now. Now they're a bit more unpredictable. They had KDB on the bench. So I do see them rising up the table. And it all depends on how that game against the Forest game, they're playing Brighton. If they lose 2 games in a row, they probably lose that magic. You know, that thing that will just getting them over the line. And they start to the momentum changes, and they feel like a normal team. Right now, they've been riding the crest of a wave. But I am looking at Newcastle, strangely enough, thinking, who knows if they could jump in. I don't believe in Chelsea anymore. Not a chance. I think the walls are falling off over there, and they see if they're going to keep standing by that goalkeeper, then I'm taking them out of the top 4. I will say you lot have a better chance than Chelsea.
What are you thinking, Craig?
I agree with KG. I'm looking at the table now, and I think Man City and Newcastle could definitely storm for this top 4 in Nottingham Forest. That Nottingham Forest result against Bournemouth, and this is the thing about injuries, and I'm harping it back to my team. Everyone talks about, injuries. Bournemouth apparently have 9 injuries.
Yeah.
But they're winning 5-0 against an informed Nottingham Forest. Like, that is a good manager getting the most out of that team. And I don't think Bournemouth are going to make a late surge for top 4. But Man City, people should be worried of, I think. I think with having Marmoush come through the door, which is going to reinvigorate them, and that's something exciting for them to look forward to. He has an amazing goal record in the Bundesliga. And then you look at Haaland hitting form again, Foden hitting form.
Oh, yeah.
Pep tweaking what he's doing there. And I just think the period of City feeling sorry for themselves now is going to be over. At the end of the day, people forget, no matter if there's a lot of aged players in this team or, you know, they've been going through the patches, they're winners, a lot of these players. Mm-hmm. They know how to win. And when I say winners, I mean that mentality, that thing up there that separates you from good players, that makes you great players. That's the final part when it comes to a lot of players. And that's the thing I don't see in a lot of the teams that are struggling. Man United, Spurs, players with that mentality. And you can't take that out of players. So I think with Man City, I mean, look, if they beat Arsenal, they're 6 points behind Arsenal right now. They beat Arsenal, they're 3 points behind Arsenal. Just like that. This is...
While I agree with you, Craig, I definitely agree. I thought that Chelsea game really impressed me, like the way they were very dominant and relentless. When they scored, as a viewer, you were like, yeah, it was coming. It was inevitable. I mean, how often do you say that about a defender scoring as well? But it felt like it was going to be him specifically that put it away. But the one thing I will say is Chelsea flattered City. Yes. I thought that you sit off them and you play the worst possible tactics against City, in my opinion. As a Newcastle fan, I was looking at them thinking, when Chelsea did get at them and when they pressed them early on, City were very unconfident at the back and they felt the bits a little bit. So they're not the City of old, they're not. But they're still a threat and they still should get top 4. I completely agree with that. Newcastle similarly though, we are hit and miss. Like if we play a midweek game, just forget about the weekend. Forget it. It's over. We're not turning up. Against that Bournemouth side, we played a midweek game and it was pathetic how we showed up. But I do think that on the basis of Isak's form right now, you'd probably look at it and go, probability-wise, City 3rd, Newcastle 4th feels like a solid bet. I've got to give an acknowledgement to Kluivert, man. Kluivert,
my goodness. And
to play like that as the son of a Premier League player, like a legend in football, Patrick Kluivert for Barcelona and that, he looks as good as his dad right now. I mean, every time he gets the ball, he's a threat. I mean, he looks so dangerous. But Josh, do you think Chelsea are still in the hunt for top 4?
I am now looking at top 5, and that should say everything you need to know. You know, Opta do that supercomputer thing. 7 games ago, we had a 92% chance of finishing in the top 5, and now it's 53%. So I think that just says everything. I am really worried about it. And do you know why I am worried about it? Because I'm looking now behind us and I'm looking at Bournemouth and Villa and I'm thinking, yeah, do you know what? They could absolutely put in a challenge, let alone, praying that Forest have a downfall. By the way, they've got a tough run of games. So we're hoping they do. And then, Man City, I think will come back. Newcastle, mate, I don't know about Newcastle. Like I feel you can have a really good run, but then I feel like you are inconsistent even within individual games.
Yeah, mate, it's absolutely mental. Watching Newcastle, like there's periods of a game where you're like, we're fucking world class. We're going to win the league. And then like we look like a relegation side for like 10 minutes after that. It's crazy how bad, like the defending in our last game was criminal and we had a goal, they had a goal disallowed, but the goal that we conceded and the goal disallowed, it was just a ball into the box, nothing special at all. As much as Newcastle, we've won 10 out of our last 11 games. So we have been consistent in that sense, but it's still Newcastle.
But then we always took this Bournemouth round, I don't think anyone's had Happy Hunt in there. Like,
they fucked us at our club. They did us at our stadium. Smashed us.
We've been done by him. I think I swear, Josh, weren't you done by the Cherries as well?
I think we
drew with them 2-2.
Yeah, I think we drew.
Yeah, but they're lethal in attack. They're lethal.
Semenyo amazing goal. Him.
Also, can I ask you, Brian, what's changed with Newcastle in terms of last season with the injuries and this season? Because I've got barely any injuries. Last season you were decimated. What's actually changed?
We've brought someone in to help with that, and I can only assume that in terms of the training, that has helped. And one of the main things is the Champions League. Mm-hmm. Like with Champions League football, when you're playing Champions League football and it's going to the 99th minute, and Newcastle are a running team, right? We're off the ball specialists. We're running ourselves into the ground, right? So then we're having to do it again on the weekend. We've got a tiny squad. I mean, literally, Eddie Howe does not like making substitutions, and for obvious reasons, right? The drop off is massive. So that's a big reason. One person I want to give a shout out to about why Newcastle have gone on the run we've gone on is Sandro Tonali, because putting him in at that number 6 position. And just bossing that midfield and sweeping up and then giving it to Bruno Guimaraes, who can now get forward a bit more. And the goal he scored in that last game, where he wins the header, Isak shoulders it onto the path of Gordon, and Tonali keeps running. That's box to box, like 10 out of 10 play that. And Tonali in front of goal. There was never a second in me where I thought, oh, he's a defensive midfielder, he's going to miss. Because technically, he's fucking class. He's got everything. Tonali, actually, and it makes us even more upset that we didn't see it last season, because he was betting on his own team to win games. But here we are. We're finally getting to see why we spent 50 million for him, and what a player. And you look at the likes of all of the great sides who've won Premier League titles in the past, you know, they've all had that number 6 who can play. And he, to me, is one of the best going in the Premier League at that right now.
Fair dues. What about no one's saying Arsenal to win the title still then? Everyone just saying they're just there about just involved.
They're just not good to watch, mate, as well. Like, it's hard to be impressed. Like, they're grinding it out, and good on them. I respect them. But equally, they just don't have that feeling that Liverpool have this season. Liverpool just look ruthless.
Without Saka, I think they can genuinely get pulled into this top 4 race, you know. I think they will get top 4, but I think they can get pulled in. Like I said, if City beat them, they can get pulled into this.
Yeah. I mean, they only just beat Wolves. I mean, and they're probably going to go down.
That was a disgrace, though.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, and I'm not just saying this as a Spurs fan, the victim mentality they are putting out against officials now is, look, we know it was a bad call, right? But
it was terrible.
But all season they have been acting like the PGMO, like they're against them, solely against them. And it reeks of desperation. Like, it reeks of desperation.
Are you meaning like the fans online that you say, basically? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not out in the street conversing with Arsenal fans.
Yeah, okay. So, like, I agree. Like, I think what we need to accept is that referees are shit for every single club in the league. Like, there's no vendetta. And maybe they have had a little bit worse luck than the rest of us. Like, I can acknowledge that. Maybe they have a little bit. But the reaction, it just is embarrassing, isn't it?
They turn around and go, Matt Oliver, he's the worst. I'm like, isn't he like the most experienced?
No, he's a prick. He's a
terrible referee.
What we're not going to do is prop Michael Oliver.
Name a referee that isn't.
No, but his one is different, and that Man City connection is weird.
There's more.
Do you want to know something funny? He's a Newcastle fan, you know.
Nah, that guy don't support no damn Newcastle. That guy,
he's a Newcastle fan.
I can't stand him, and I think some of the decisions are criminal. Though we have to be honest. Yeah. And even that one the other day, there's no way.
But VAR was there for a reason, lads, and it's doing fuck all, mate.
It doesn't do it. It doesn't do its job.
Like, so I have no problem with Arsenal fans being angry about the decision. They've got every right to be. It's just the level and the it's always us sort of thing.
It's been 20 years. Everyone's 20 years. They're side.
Right, he did a whole video about it on his Instagram. I was
that's bad.
I'm like, bro, like,
he's on the payroll though. He's got to do everything he can, right?
Yeah.
All right. So just a quick one. Is it fair to say we expect it to roughly finish Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle? Is that what we're leaning towards right now?
I love how you got Newcastle in there, but respect.
I would think so. It is what it is, mate.
Yeah.
I'm terrified because I know that when we get back in the Champions League, I should be happy. I should be excited. And all I'm thinking is, no doubt PSL will stop us from signing anyone and we'll be fucked next season. It'll be miserable again.
I'm gonna stick with Forest, just depending on if he turn up in that Brighton game. If they turn up in that Brighton game, then cool, because Chris Wood, they deserve it. They've been brilliant this season.
You think Forest and City rather than Newcastle?
Yeah.
You fucker.
They don't deserve it in Premier League.
No.